Before we begin today's video, I'd like to thank subscriber Robert Kirby for suggesting the Mayan creation story based on the Popul Vuh. Now, if any of you are watching this video for educational purposes, you are probably already familiar with the Mayans. If for nothing else, the doomsday scare idiots who don't possess a lick of common sense tried to propagate back in 2012. And still continue to try and ram down our throats from time to time, even up until today. Aside from that, not many people understand how significant the Mayans were as a civilization prior to the colonialization of the Spaniards in the 16th century. The Mayans had among them some of the most advanced knowledge on subjects such as mathematics, astronomy, and architecture for the time, not just in the region of South America and not just in the New World. These guys easily competed with the likes of the Greeks and the Egyptians. And perhaps their most important, for our purposes today anyway, was the development of their own writing system, which took the pictographic elements of the Olmec and incorporated them with ideograms to better represent more abstract ideas which could not be merely represented by drawings of things. This led, of course, to the preservation of knowledge, which in turn allowed for the Mayans to institute schools, hospitals, and other hallmarks of life typically associated with Western civilization. Yet, curiously enough, they decided to abandon all of these cities in favor of living in smaller, much less assuming villages by the time the Spaniards came knocking on their door in the 16th century. Following decades of bloody conflict, many of the Mayans' books were destroyed in an effort to convert the population to Catholicism, in no small part due to that one Inquisition nobody ever expects. Thankfully, and rather obviously, seeing as you're watching this video, the Popul Vuh was one of the lucky ones, and lives on to give us an unabridged tale of how the Mayans saw their creation and place in the world. At least according to the Quiche people, but hey, they were arguably the most advanced people in the Mayan Empire anyway, so 6 1/2, 12 a dozen. Oh, and by the way, I will butcher the fuck out of this, because look at their language. That is way too many uncommon consonants thrown in with confusing vowels. Apologies in advance, I'll try my best to find pronunciations for this shit online, but holy fuck man, what did I just get myself into? So, in the beginning, there was a sky and sea. However, the Popul Vuh specifically clarifies that, quote, the face of the earth has not yet appeared. Chilling out on the primordial waters are our two major creator deities. Oh my god. Yeah, you know what? You go and fucking try and pronounce this. We're going with a simplified name, Gugumats, and Tepu, which literally translates to sovereign. Gugumats is a bit harder to understand, but he's basically the Mayan version of the Quetzalcoatl, who is an important creation deity in the Aztec pantheon represented as a flying serpent with the feathers of the quetzal, which is a brightly colored bird typically found in South American highlands. Anyway, for the first indeterminable period of time, Gugumats and Tepu just chilled in the water, occasionally procreating to produce unnamed children who are described as sages. But since they have nowhere to go, they just sink into the waters beneath the endless sky, awaiting the opportune time for when their talents will be needed. Eventually, out of the darkness of the sky, a new god formulated himself, known as Hurricane, or as he is referred to in the Popul Vuh, Heart of the Sky. Now, for you etymology nerds, allow for me to divulge to you the incredibly convoluted naming convention behind this god. So, as you no doubt have already noticed, Hurricane sounds an awful lot like the English word hurricane. This is no coincidence, as the English word comes from the Spanish huracán, which is actually not a Spanish word, but really a borrowed word from the Caribbean language of Taino. Now, boys and girls, what do you think Hurricane was the god of in Mayan mythology? If you answered winds, storms, and fire, you'd be absolutely correct. However, as noted by both the footnotes of the translation of the Popul Vuh I'm reading for this video as well as the Wikipedia, fuck off, we're not in high school, I can use it as a source. In the Mayan language, his name literally means one-legged, implying he is a crippled god, which has absolutely nothing to do with today's creation story. I'm just being a really big fucking nerd right now. Anyway, getting back to it, Hurricane, Gugumats, and Tepu all met above the primordial waters, and came to an agreement that there should be something else in this empty void of creation. And so they combined their thoughts and words together, separating the mountains from the seas, germinating the first seeds by which vegetation and plant life may grow, and then set aside a flattened, more sustainable place by which they would create humanity, which is essentially a catch-all term for mortal life which will worship and revere them. Now, taking a quick aside to note something interesting I noticed about the following passages of the Popul Vuh, I alluded to earlier in this video that the Mayans and the Greeks could have easily rivaled one another when it came to their scholarly innovations at the time. However, their lines of thought might be a lot closer than people give them credit for. As in both creation stories, when it came to the population of the Earth with mortals, both respective pantheons had some issues with the various ages of humanity, and had to create subsequent follow-up generations to replace the ones they deemed too defective by their own divine standards. I may cover the various ages of humanity as described by the Greeks in a later video, but for today, let's focus solely on the Mayans. So first, the trio of gods attempted to populate the earth with various different animals you might find in a South American jungle, such as snakes, jaguars, deer, birds, boars, etc., etc. However, these life forms were swiftly cast aside when they came to realize that they could not actually articulate their appreciation and reverence towards the gods because obviously, animals cannot talk. Except, well, you'll see in just a bit. The second idea Gugumatsu and Hurricane hatched up, and by the way, I have no idea where Tapio disappeared to. I think she just kind of gave up on the whole creation thing and spent the rest of her day sitting on the couch with a rosé wine watching Days of Our Lives like any other alcoholic stay-at-home wife. The second attempt by the gods we actually care about came from Gugumatsu and Hurricane attempting to craft humans out of mud. However, Einstein and Da Vinci over here failed to realize that when you make humans out of mud, you should probably be doing so on dry land so they can solidify, instead of the primordial waters where they're just going to dissolve all over again. For their third time around, Gugumatsu and Hurricane realized that they were out of their league when it came to this whole creation shtick. So they summoned up the sages I mentioned earlier from the waters surrounding the earth. These fellows came up with the idea to carve out humans from the wood of the surrounding trees. However, Hurricane saw fit to destroy this batch of humans when it became clear they were emotionless sociopaths who questioned why they should have to worship their creators. The few remaining survivors were later transformed into monkeys and banished to live in the wild amongst the other animals. So now, in a bind as to what they should do next, Gugumatsu and Hurricane were actually handed the materials to create their perfect race for humanity in the form of multicolored corn, gifted to them by some disgraced species of animals looking to get back into the good graces of the gods. They were the fox, the coyote, the parrot, and the crow. You'll notice that two of these animals are known for their distinct ability to replicate human speech, thus calling into question why the crow and the parrot were cast out in the first place, but fuck it, my cynicism is never appreciated by those who stand on religious literalism and the dogma which follows it anyway. Now, utilizing this new, exciting raw material which covers the entire western half of the Rust Belt, Hurricane and Gugumatsu finally created the first four men, who were destined to go down in history, and found the four Quiche Mayan lineages. However, the twosome made a mistake when crafting these first men, and actually feared that they were so great they might even rival the glory of the gods. Which evidently isn't very hard to do. And so they invented women, literally just so that they can be distracted by their own feelings of lust and desire to procreate. I'm getting a strange case of deja vu, though I'm not exactly sure why. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Mayan creation story. Once again, I'd like to thank Robert Kirby for suggesting this video, and if any of you watching at home have some further suggestions as to which mythology I should cover next, leave it in the comments section down below. And if you're new here and watched all the way to the end of this video, that must mean you're at the very least somewhat interested in my videos. So by all means, please consider subscribing to my channel. I also have a Patreon link down below. $5 a month gets you access to my sub-series, Academic Ayakashi Archive. This time we're going to be reviewing the Umibozu and what you'll need to look out for as a pantsless sailor in feudal Japan. Don't forget about that Discord, link is also in the description below, and while I have one more surprise lined up for you guys at the tail end of this video, let me just take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for watching my video, especially you returning subscribers. You guys are what makes this whole channel worth it, and without you, I would not be doing this. So, thanks so much for watching today, and making this year a great one for the channel. Now, let me show you how I intend to close it out.